What are your thoughts on those who say religion or religious belief is the problem with African Americans?
Yeah, we've seen that a lot in the comments. You know, we've talked about Islam can help the black community. We've had some discussion even with the Christians, the Hebrew Israelites, and many of them say, well, you all need to give up religion altogether. Now, these are African Americans. So it's a small group, but I do think that there's a rise in atheist Muslims. I'm sorry, subhanAllah, atheist black people. What's important, you know, even in the Bible, it says that the fool says in his heart, there is no God. And in the Quran, Allah, he says that we did not create the heavens and the earth without a purpose. And he says that is the speculation of those without faith, those who reject faith. And then there's another part of the Quran where Allah says those who reject faith, meaning they don't believe in a God. It makes no difference whether you warn them or you do not warn them. They will not believe. Allah has sealed their hearts, and their hearings and their vision is closed. So the basic fact, though, is that atheism is insanity, or atheism is at the very least a delusion. It's a deluded state of mind, because what it actually posits is that this world came into existence from nothing. The world has no purpose, and essentially what that means is that our life has no purpose outside of what we declare it to be. The reason why that falls short is because, first and foremost, you know, as Muslims, as other faith groups, the Abrahamic faiths, we believe, like, our position is based upon the position of Abraham, upon him be peace. And Abraham is the one who came to the conclusion that the whole universe is designed. And we know that now. Like, the very activity of science couldn't even take place. Like, and what we get from science, like medicine, engineering, this activity couldn't even take place if the universe did not have a design. But the very fact of the universe having a design, meaning that it conforms to a particular logic, it behaves according to a set of patterns, it also corresponds to the nature of the human mind. The human mind is of such nature that it looks for logic, it looks for pattern. So here the mind is looking for logic, looking for pattern, looking for reasons why X, Y, and Z occurs. Here is the world formed in a manner that complements the nature of my mind. And common sense lets everyone know when there is design, it is evidence of a designer. And you actually have people saying, or atheists saying, that the world doesn't have a design, that the design argument is bad. I mean, it's delusion. It's actual delusion. If the world didn't have a design, then again, how can we go to the hospital if we have some type of ailment or sickness or injury? How could we ever get helped? It's because there's a design, there's a structure, there's a pattern and logic to the human body. There's a cause-effect relationship to everything that makes up the world. Also, a common argument on behalf of belief in God is that there's a moral order. If there's no God, then there's ultimately no real right or wrong. Because for us as believers in God, not only do we believe that this objective universe has a pattern and a logic, but human behavior should have to also conform to a pattern and logic. So what is to say that I am to respect my elders, or I am not to kill, I'm not to steal, I'm not to lie? Ultimately, like, you can say it's wrong, but if there's no objective moral authority or no objective basis for morality, then that's just your opinion that is wrong. That's just your opinion that robbing you is wrong, killing you is wrong. You see what I'm saying? So it has to be grounded in something. So and what's unique about objective, this notion of moral order or moral authority, our life flourishes when we respect moral authority. So it's not just, you know, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. What we have actually discovered in the experience of our life as human beings is, like, when we obey these things, our life is successful. When we go against these laws or these rules, our life recedes, or it fades into savagery. We can't have progress for our life. So throughout the Quran, what's unique is that Allah gives us commandments, moral commandments, but oftentimes, if not all the times, he gives a logic, a reasoning behind it. So, for example, he says, don't go near adultery and fornication because it is a road that opens up the path to many other roads. And we see that in modern society. As I've mentioned before, they've written about the proliferation of fornication and adultery and how that has always been like, once that becomes the standard, the norm in a society, it is a marker that that society is on its way out the door. So that which God commands of us to do and what he establishes as morally good, these are the things that preserve our life as civilized people flourishing in the earth. Therefore, it's objectively true. Moral truth, which is revealed in Scripture, is objectively true because we can prove upon objective study if we obey. So the other thing is that I would say all of the great advances for civilization came about because of people. As a matter of fact, all civilization, even when we go to ancient Egypt, even when we go to the ancient, not the Nile Valley, of course, that's ancient Egypt. I'm speaking of the Indus Valley. Even when we go to the Greeks, they've actually done studies on this. You can get books on this. All like the great pyramid builder Imhotep. All of these great persons, figures who were the fathers of civilization, all of them claimed to have received divine inspiration, divine revelation. And that's true until this day. Even the great scientists that have laid the groundwork of what we call the modern world, Galileo, Newton, Einstein, etc. And then a lot who are not named, like in African American tradition, George Washington Carver or Benjamin Banneker. These great intellects, all of them accepted belief in God. And many of them, like George Washington Carver, was very clear. A lot of artists speak like this. That they didn't see themselves as really doing the work. They were more like conduits by which God was doing the work through them. So I'm saying that to say the believers in God have really produced the world for us. The atheists have given us nothing. What have the atheists given us? They didn't give us the free market. They didn't give us the advances in science and education, public education. They haven't given us the advance for the treatment of women. They didn't give us the idea of eradicating diseases. They didn't give us anything that we can look at today and say, our life in the modern world is better because of what these atheists have done. So when an African American comes along now and says, well, belief in religion is what's wrong with the black community, I think that it's the religious culture that we have that's the problem for the black community. For example, in the African American church, especially in the inner city. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. You go from 79th and Halsted all the way to 55th and Halsted, or 79th and Ashland all the way down to 55th and Ashland. And people from Chicago know what I'm talking about. When you go down that street, I don't know how it is now, but it was nothing, it may be 2 or 3 churches on one block. And those churches were poor, obviously. Those churches were not in the habit of taking the people in the community, building businesses with those people. Those churches were supporting the life of the pastor. And for a large part, those churches or those houses of worship were doing with us that which the people who claim religion is a problem, they're true in the fact that they're observing what religion is doing for people, poor and ignorant people. It's just getting us high. It's just getting us drunk so that we can ignore our real problems and not meet those real problems head on. But that's not correct religion, as we said in other videos. Correct religion is that which qualifies us to become productive, the most productive and the most competitive for the advance of life on this earth. So atheism is a system of belief itself based upon doubt. Atheism is an irrational belief. It's more irrational and unscientific than those who believe in God. And then also atheism has produced nothing.
What do you say to those who claim Islam is racist or carries racist ideas?
Islam, yeah, we see that a lot in the comments. How could you be a Muslim and Islam enslaved you and Islam says this and Muhammad's had a black slave and all of this. They talk like this, you know. It's very, very, very important. See, religion is one of those things that everyone has an opinion about, but very few really study. It's like politics. Like how many people who vote Democrat or Republican look at the Democrat or Republican Party platform, have studied the philosophies that undergird conservatism and that type of liberalism, so on and so forth, let alone looked at the Constitution and how the law works. Most of them haven't. So the same thing is true with religion. Everyone has an opinion. Very few look at the content of it. Al-Islam is a religion that's universal. I mean, it's very clear in the Quran. O mankind, indeed, we created you from a male and a female, and we made you into tribes and nations that in order that you recognize and know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most God conscious or the most righteous. I mean, that's very clear. Allah says, indeed, we have made noble and honorable all of the descendants of Adam. That's very clear. He says it is not the flesh about the sacrifice that we make on the Hajj. It is not the flesh or the blood and the flesh that reaches him, but it is righteousness, God consciousness from yourselves. So the idea then that Islam harbors racist ideas would also say that Islam is contradictory. But Al-Islam as a religion is not contradictory. The Quran is not contradictory. And you have certain apologists, and they're not real apologists. They're like online apologists who try to show Al-Islam to be contradictory. But we're going to do videos on that too, because when they talk, from the moment they start talking, they show how ignorant they are, you know, lack of knowledge of very basic things. So, for example, Allah says about the judgment day, on the day when some faces will be black and some faces will be white. Aswad abyad. So aswad black, abyad white. And the people say, see here, the people in hell, their faces are black, and the people here, their faces are white. The problem here is that most of us have the coloring. Most of us have the pattern of thought that the white supremacists gave us. When you go back to ancient Egypt, when you go back to any ancient society, the world was not simply black and white like that. Like even the hadith of the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him, where he says they translated there's no superiority of a black over a white or a white over a black. He technically says a red over a black and a black over a red. That's what the actual Arabic says, because the people of the ancient world used to, not everywhere, but in many places, they would determine or assign a name to the color of the people based upon how they responded to the sun. And the sun makes white people red. And we know that. Remember, we would call them, in our tradition, we call white people rednecks. So the Prophet was calling them the red people. I'm saying that to say this idea of black and white, Africans are black and Europeans are white, that's not the language of the ancient world. That's not the language of the Bible. That's not the language of the Quran. That's not the language of the ancient world. That's the language of cultures, and that's the language that has been exacerbated in the history of the world. So what ends up happening is that people, they do this more than just that verse that I quoted. They take a modern day mind that has been colored or grafted by white supremacy, and then they look at the Quran and say, see, white supremacy. They take the hadith where the Prophet said, praise and peace be upon him, follow, obey your imam, even if he be a raisin head. That's racist. This is the way people talk always. People always, to be called a raisin head it wasn't a put down. He's saying, we call them naps. Naps mean something. So in other words, it wasn't used as, it's not, they read it to say, again, this is the mind that has been processed by white supremacy. It's like saying, love your wife no matter how ugly she is. That's how they're reading that. They're reading it that the Prophet is saying, follow your imam even if he is of this inferior type. But that's not what's being said. He's given a description in the language of the people at that time. You see what I'm saying? So Because Allah also says in the Quran, and I think Maulana Muhammad Ali translates it, he talks about the hell, the people of hell on the day, or the people that will go into hell on the day of judgment, they'll be blue-eyed with terror. One says bleary-eyed, but the word can mean blue-eyed. So many people say, see, brother, that's the blue-eyed devil, the blue-eyed white man. He's the one that's going to be. Well, in another verse, wasn't he black? So now we have black people, well, people with black faces with blue eyes that's going to be going to hell. No. Scripture, like people, we don't use color, even in our everyday language, to mean strictly color. If we were using strictly color, then we would all be brown. The world called us black. The world called us negro. Negro, nigger. That's black in Latin and Spanish. We're brown, technically. So that's the problem. Now, the second idea is regarding to slavery. We know that the Arabs came to East Africa. They castrated a lot of the men. The Arab slave trade goes back even further than the North Atlantic slave trade. And Islam, it speaks about the slaves. And we know that the Arabs, including our prophets, had slaves. The problem is slavery as practiced in the world and slavery as acknowledged in Islam. They're two different things. They're radically different. For example, the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him, he even forbade animals like a puppy to be separated from the mother. The slave trade, the Arab slave trade and the North Atlantic slave trade, this was the slave trade where people were, like if you look at the Kunta Kinte story, you know what I'm, just to use that as a model to make the point. They invaded these people's lands, kidnapped these people, sold them into the markets. That is outright forbidden in Islam. In Islam, we are not permitted to invade people's land, separate families, kill people, steal from those people, etc., etc. So as a point of departure, that is forbidden. The slavery of the ancient world came about because of predominantly prisoners of war. Another thing that people did, they put themselves into slavery. And this is, whether we like it or not, this is still the world we live in. I'll give you a bad example, but this is an example that's very common. Women, like the song Brenda's Got a Baby, women will prostitute themselves if they can't make ends meet. And they will put them, that we have that in advanced America. That's an example of people putting themselves in the role of slave. And I mentioned this early on in a video we did about a year ago, where even today, when you become a prisoner, a ward of the state, you technically have no citizenship rights. The state owns you. That's more akin to the slavery during that time. So there wasn't a big slave market. I'm talking about the time of the Prophet, praise and peace be upon him, and the type of slavery that Islam is even addressing in the Quran and in the prophetic tradition. These were people who were prisoners of war. Sometimes they were stranded, like the children of slave, and they couldn't go back to their homeland. They had no more connection, things like that. And there are so many, like the Prophet said, feed them what you eat, clothe them in what you clothe. Don't call them slave, call them son. They were to be educated. And if they wanted to earn their freedom, they could. And it wasn't slavery like go pick some cotton in the back and I'll whip you. It was none of that. You couldn't strike them. The Prophet forbade striking them. All of these things that we are so again, that white man has really reordered our thinking. So we read the Prophet had a slave. We think of antebellum South, and it's not that. The reality is, if we are fair, the Africans had slaves. The Africans enslaved Africans. The Europeans enslaved Europeans. The Arabs enslaved Arabs. Everybody enslaved everybody. The Native Americans enslaved other Native Americans, and that was the type of slavery. The North Atlantic slave trade and the Arab slave trade, on the surface of it, invading, capturing, castrating, beating, stealing, all of it upon the very basis of how it was carried out is forbidden by Islam. You're not allowed to do that. Muslims are not allowed to do that. So did Arabs do that? And have Arabs or the Muslim world, Indians too, have they kept or have they had racist ideas in their understanding of Islam? Yes, 100%. But they don't represent Islam. They are not the Quran and the prophetic tradition. They are not. just no more than we would say that the white slave master is the true representative of Jesus Christ. And I will say that those of us who are African American, or the Africans too, because there are 500 million Muslims in Africa, and there was great civilization for Islam in Africa, we do have a responsibility to clear the air because we've accepted Islam, and it would be better for us to understand our religion and its teachings and present it to the world. Just like Frederick Douglass corrected the whites, the white authority, the white power structure in his day, and said that you all shame Jesus Christ. He said that to them. That was his message to them. We should be conveying the same message to the power structure, or even just to set the history record straight regarding how people of African descent or certain blacks were treated in the history of the Ummah. But we can't forget that they were also celebrated too. And there's a long history, and there are books actually written about this. This can be looked up. We had Imam Mendes on the show some time ago about his book that he translated from a classical Islamic scholar. And there's several other books written in that regard. The brother Mustafa Briggs compiled books about Africans on the East Africa, Africans in West Africa, and how they were regarded and their great achievements for civilization. So we have to be fair.
Please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you. Who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking, who taught you, please, who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
Yes, we're here with you. Things and Times. It's all about liberation continually, but we are in, we will be in African History, I choose to call it that, African History Month. And I really want to start early, you know what I mean? And because it's Friday. But I want to go back to Palestine quickly and then come forward. Okay? Trust me.
The bombs can be heard in the background even as the aid workers arrive.
Hi, this is Aziz from Humanity First. I'm here in Rafah in Gaza.
1 million people are now crammed into the tiny city of Rafah in the most southern part of Gaza, and the sound of Israeli bombardment and gunfire reverberate in the atmosphere. Dr. Aziz Hafiz led a small team of aid workers into Gaza to assess the situation.
Humanity First, as an international disaster response NGO, like all other NGOs, has been trying very, very hard to gain access into Gaza. For us, the priority was to see our own staff members in Gaza, to assess their welfare and also assess the needs on the ground.
Humanity First is one of the very first British NGOs permitted to enter Gaza since the war began more than 100 days ago. As the convoy travelled across the Rafah crossing and into Gaza, their rare entry into the besieged strip revealed to them the horrors of a catastrophic humanitarian catastrophe.
We all hear on the news the challenges within Gaza, but seeing is believing. Rafah city is full of IDPs, internally displaced people. More than nearly 90% of the population of Gaza is displaced to the south. We're seeing families where there are no toilets and they have to pass the call of nature in plastic bags for their own dignity. Families living out in the open. It's undescribable, sadly, undescribable.
The tragedy unfolding in Gaza is even a shock to aid workers like Usman Deen and Yusuf Aftab, who have responded to other humanitarian disasters in the past, but nothing like this.
When we arrived there, it was fairly late. The smell was extremely strong. As soon as you cross the border, it smells of sewage, blood. It's difficult to actually in words describe the smell, but it's an extremely strong smell. The lights are out, there's no electricity there, so it's difficult to find your way around. People had, the suffering that they had gone through. People have left their homes that they were living in all their life in.
But nowhere is safe. There's a humanitarian zone, a small humanitarian zone that you have to operate, but outside that humanitarian zone, which if I say it's about 2 kilometers in radius, beyond that it's active fighting. You're constantly hearing shelling, and my heart goes out to the people of Palestine.
Israeli authorities are blocking access for aid trucks into Gaza as Human Rights Watch accuses it of using starvation as a weapon of war. And the queues of aid trucks waiting to get in goes on and on. Food is scarce here, and when it does arrive, it's sold on the black market for 100 times its value. Children queue for hours just to get water. No water, no sanitation, little food, and little hope.
Sanitation issues, hygiene issues, risks to their health. If the bombs aren't going to kill you or somebody's not going to shoot you, certainly the disease is going to get you, and that becomes very, very difficult. Respiratory conditions, skin conditions, not being able to have water to drink there. They have to stand for hours and hours, and that's including our Humanity First staff as well.
There is no respite for the thousands of Palestinians forced to flee their homes. The cold has long set in, disease and hunger are becoming widespread. Hospitals in Gaza are almost non-functioning, with patients abandoned due to a lack of doctors and supplies.
We spoke to a doctor working at the Al-Shifa hospital who had evacuated, and she described how she had to be evacuated from the hospital, coming out with her hands in the air as she had to leave her patients. Another neurologist we spoke to, who was in one of the IDP camps, he described the harrowing time, how he was seeing blood everywhere and unable to help the patients.
One of the doctors from Al-Shifa hospital describes the scene there.
When Israel obligate us to leave at Shifa hospital, we leave many patients. We don't know anything now about him. I see many cases, just kids, 12, 11, 15, all become quadriplegic. I lost many my friends, my colleagues. Now I don't know if they are killed or in the prison.
The 3-man team from Humanity First concluded their 3-day assessment in Gaza, but the impact of what they saw doesn't leave them.
There's a part of you that wants to go back, and a part of you wants to stay. The team didn't sleep whatsoever when we were in Gaza, and that was partly because just seeing the atrocities of what people were actually suffering, but also just the noise. It's quite traumatic. Even when you come back, you're remembering. You have the noise still buzzing in your mind.
Humanity First has many workers on the ground striving to help those in need, but with aid trucks blocked, supplies non-existent, and a war with no end in sight, there's only so much that they're able to do. Atif Rashid, MTA News.
Yes, it is Palestine, and we will continue to remind people, you understand, even though we are not seeing it, you're not hearing anything. So like I said, I want to be in early for African History, Black History Month. There is a brother, father, a true champion, entitled, his name is Vernon Johns. Vernon John wanted freedom for us, the slave, the ancestors and the slaves in the U.S. Vernon Johns was well educated. I have to say all of this. Vernon Johns committed himself as his family did for the freedom, to gain freedom for us Africans. It is sad that they link not human rights, civil rights in the same breath when they mention him. But the reason for that really is the organization that was established for our individuals who were preaching and teaching and corralling people in different communities, in different states within the U.S. That committee used his name in relation to civil rights. He wasn't no civil rights. He was human rights and freedom. It was about us not being consumers. It was about us being taught how to become independent. It was about us learning to do for self. Vernon Johns, he was made to sit down, to step down by the organization. And Martin Luther King Jr. was his replacement. His stepping down was because he continued to push from the pulpit about independence, freedom, doing for self, using the land, developing our own food, and selling to ourselves. But he was asked to stop. And he wouldn't. So they removed him from his position and brought Martin Luther King in. So Martin was not, and the people around him was not anything like Vernon. But the organization listened to other people and championed civil rights. And if we can follow both brothers, one will see and recognize that the family of Vernon Johns and Vernon John, there were people across the state that agreed wholeheartedly with that direction. So a lot of our people did organize themselves. Not that there weren't people who were organizing before, but they organized as a collective and started to produce and develop for ourselves. Vernon Johns. He weren't like some of the other academics that we did have that fell in the middle class realm of the Caucasian society, like W.D. Du Bois and others. Vernon was an African American diasporan father, brother, until he left this earth. So I want to bring Vernon Johns to the forefront. I've done this on the first radio station I was on, and I would always remember him every week. Vernon Johns. One thing I did understood from my family was that we shouldn't let others create our heroes or our teachers or our liberators. They're ours. We should know them. We should seek them out. And we should question at all times what is happening around and about us, because it took Dr. Martin Luther King several years to realize that he was on the wrong track. And that's because what was surrounding him was a bunch of advisors that didn't look like him. And they were pushing him to the White House, but the White House did not make provisions for him. Look at his history. I'm not one of those who are trying to blast our father and our brother, but if you listen, anybody have listened to his last 5 speeches? I mean, I think some people haven't got the last 3, but I'm saying 5. he actually told us. And one of them is called In Conversation with Paul. He actually told us. And the power of the day, decipher what he was doing, what he was saying and what he was doing, and perhaps what his intention may be. Because at that same time, he met with Melchiel Shabazz, Malcolm X. And before he met with Melchiel Shabazz, he also met with Elijah Muhammad. Now, what was the mountain? What was the mountain? I know Bible people want to tell you that that's where Jesus Christ was tempted. But symbolically, listen to it carefully and remove your prejudice and listen to what he said. And then know what happened the week before. Try and know what happened the week before and then listen to that speech, particularly that speech. And not the emphasis on walking and I had a dream. No. I can't remember the title that the nation called the drum major. Listen to that speech and you will know why our brother, one of the real reasons why he was taken from us. Because there was a U-turn. Right? So I'm still highlighting Vernon because if Martin was allowed through the organization to liaise with Vernon, the Martin that we receive would not have been that one. Would not have been that one. Vernon was also a teacher. So there's no doubt about his integrity and his capability. Brother Vernon.
Dr. Vernon Johns was an American minister, scholar, and civil rights pioneer whose bold intellect and uncompromising advocacy for racial justice laid the groundwork for the modern civil rights movement. Widely regarded as one of the most provocative and courageous figures of his time, Johns was best known for his tenure as pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama from 1947 to 1952, where his fiery sermons and radical views on race relations shocked and inspired many. He was often called the father of the civil rights movement, though his role is less recognized than later leaders. Vernon Johns was born on April 22, 1892 in Darlington Heights, Virginia, to a family of sharecroppers. His rural upbringing gave him first-hand experience of the systematic oppression and economic struggles faced by African Americans in the South. Despite limited resources, Johns excelled academically, earning a scholarship to attend Virginia Union University, a historically black institution in Richmond, Virginia. Johns demonstrated an early proclivity for intellectual pursuits, mastering Greek, Latin, and Hebrew, and developing an enduring passion for classical literature and theology. He later studied at Oberlin College in Ohio and the University of Chicago. His academic excellence and command for classical philosophy informed his sermons, where he often drew parallels between ancient history and contemporary racial injustice. Dr. Johns' ministry was marked by his fearless critique of racial inequality and relentless call for black self-determination. Before arriving at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Johns served at various churches across the South, gaining a reputation for his brilliance and outspokenness. However, his uncompromising approach frequently clashed with the conservative sensibilities of his congregants and church leadership. At Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Johns continued to challenge the status quo, urging black congregants to confront racism head-on rather than accept subjugation. He insisted on the importance of economic independence, often preaching about black entrepreneurship and advocating for boycotts of white-owned businesses that perpetuated discrimination. His sermons were as scholarly as they were provocative. In one notable sermon titled, "It's Safe to Murder Negroes," Johns condemned the systematic devaluation of black lives, pointing to the widespread acceptance of lynching and racial violence in the South. His courage in addressing such topics from the pulpit often alienated more conservative church members who preferred a less confrontational approach. Frustration with his outspokenness ultimately led to his resignation in 1952, paving the way for the church to hire Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose leadership would ignite the Montgomery bus boycott. Though Johns left Dexter Avenue Baptist Church under pressure, his influence endured in the civil rights movement. His emphasis on black economic independence, direct action, and moral courage shaped the strategies of leaders like King. Indeed, many of Johns' ideas, such as boycotts and mass mobilization, would later define the civil rights movement. Beyond his ministry, Johns was a prolific writer and thinker, often publishing essays in black newspapers that dissected the racial injustices of the Jim Crow South. He was unyielding in his criticism of both white supremacy and the complacency of some black leaders, whom he accused of compromising for social acceptance rather than pursuing true justice. It was only after he died in 1965 where Johns' contributions began to receive broader recognition. His ideas and activism are now seen as foundational to the work of the civil rights leaders who followed, particularly in Montgomery, where his fiery sermons inspired a generation of activists. Dr. Johns was a visionary leader whose intellect and courage set the stage for the civil rights movement. His scholarship, revolutionary sermons, and emphasis on black economic independence challenged the social and racial order of the Jim Crow South long before such activism became widespread. Though he never achieved the fame of his successor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Johns' work laid a critical foundation for the struggle for racial justice in America. His life was a testament to the power of conviction and enduring impact of speaking truth to power. To Dr. Vernon Johns, we proudly stand on your shoulders. For more information, please visit my website at www.ontheshoulders1.com. There, you can support my OTSOG book series. You can also support me on Patreon at patreon.com/OTSOG. And you can hit the super like button under this video. I love you all, and make sure you catch the next video coming up.
That's how we do. We're not going to dismiss. So listen and listen carefully.
Back. They'll take our money, but they despise us so much they will not touch our hands in the exchange. Money is power, Brother Hill.
You ain't lying. Now, we're not going back to that restaurant, are we?
No. Brother Hill, what do you see?
I see a grocery store. What do you see?
I see a whole mess of Negro dollars going into white pockets. Now look at that. They'll take our money, but they despise us so much they will not touch our hands in the exchange. Money is power, Brother Hill.
You ain't lying.
And why are we turning over our power to people who despise us?
But Dr. Johns, the members of our congregation are professional people. They're not business-oriented.
Yeah, and that's our biggest mistake. Right now, we are only consumers. If we're only consumers, we're parasites. Do you want a definition of perpetual motion? Give the average Negro a Cadillac and tell him to park it on some land that he owns. If gold was discovered in the hottest regions of hell, the whites would be there within a fortnight, mining it for all its wealth. The coloreds would show up 3 weeks later, offering their services as maids and butlers. thing to do is to get there first. But we don't think that way. Just to show you what can be done on a small parcel of land, I grew these at the parsonage. I left the roots and the tops on to prove they are not store-bought. The Bible tells us that a feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things. Now, what does that mean? It means that whoever controls the money has all the answers. You get control of the money by producing. Negroes need to own more businesses, and Negroes need to patronize those businesses. By the way, I noticed that some of you were staring at my feet this morning because I had neglected to wear shoestrings. Well, I'll start wearing them when Negro folks start producing them.
Deacon Wilkes. Have you seen what our famous preacher is up to now?
Get in your hand.
Shameful.
Stockings, pencils. You need it, I got it. 29 cents.
This apple?
10 cents, 2 cents.
That's too much for that apple.
Watermelon, I'll take it.
Morning, Abernathy.
Good day, Reverend Johns. Look at all this.
Buy wholesale and sell retail. Anybody can do it. Eventually, I plan to set up a store in the basement of the church.
This is something my First Baptist congregation should be doing.
Reverend Abernathy, between you and me, these nylon stockings are not big sellers amongst my congregation. It's a matter of modesty, the size of the thighs.
Well, I'm sure the question of size would be a difficult question for the good women of Dexter. But we ain't modest in my church. I'll sell all of these nylons next Sunday.
We'll work out the details later.
Great idea. Wish I had thought of it.
Watermelons! Sweet, juicy watermelons!
Yes. We became, by default, consumers, and we continue. I mean, there might be some people who would adamantly disagree, but why is it trying to do that? Prove otherwise. We're consumers. And we haven't made any impact to change from that. From then, coming out of slavery, up to this point in time. And our oppressors like it just like that. And some of us says we understood or understand or acknowledge the UNIA. But I would say I would contest anybody today and say, well, we did, but only one aspect, because sailing the ship to Africa would have created commerce and exchange. And those who wanted to stay in Africa would have been able to do that. And those who were trading, as our ancestors at home were doing with others, would have been able to continue or develop that ourselves, because we have the resource. And today, with the 1 in 2 of us, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands, who earn some serious money, we haven't taken the UNIA Black Star Liner. We don't sell, we don't ride, we don't fly into Africa. And it's waiting for us. It has been always waiting for us to trade. It's waiting for us to come home. Repatriation. That's what our elders said. Repatriation. That's what Rasta said. Repatriation is a must. But then we got caught up with a lot of other things. And we become the world's greatest consumers. You know? We work hard. We do whatever we do hard for the money, to earn, to get some money. And then we quickly give it right back, as if we had no understanding. And it's called consumer. We will argue about our own brothers and sisters' prices. And those arguments are valid because where others are having those prices cheaper, those products cheaper, we ain't been able to do that. But if we had institutions of learning, or we had some place where we congregate and reason, then such information would have been decipherable to our people and our communities and our districts. And then we would have had a bright start, because obviously it's all about getting into the event. But we be creating the event ourselves. So it's about supporting ourselves, and we'll overcome the price tag obstacles. But we didn't do that. We haven't done that. And those of us who try something, we're always trying to compete with others instead of create our own. So for ourselves, it won't be a competition. Nothing to compete. We're sourcing ourselves. And that would make us so close. And no one would have to beg us to do anything, because we know it's us. The loving of ourselves will be that which will be exemplified. The trusting of ourselves is what would be seen. The beauty. But we haven't given ourselves the opportunity. We haven't created the opportunity. And we can. And our children, academically, are very, very bright. And if our children were connected to the continent, what kind of mental resource can anybody have a dream of? And I'm speaking of our children who were raised in the diaspora. What a beautiful vision. Think about it. Reason about it. Don't argue, reason about it. That generation meeting their counterpart on the continent of Africa, even the Caribbean. But we much prefer them to be that far, to go there, get the secondary education in the Caribbean, and then go to university on the continent. And why I use the word university, it's huge. And the opportunities that they would encounter. And then to help strengthen those of us who would remain in the diaspora, to establish an infrastructure of our own for ourselves. Have a dream. We all leaders. We all are part of a family. All we're saying is extend that. That's what common leadership is. Before you know it, our children will start showing us about political management and how that can be so industrious, economically. Now they have smelled, visited the continent. What a dream. That's a reality. But we're allowing people to confuse our children, to manipulate our children, and we're perhaps not comfortable visiting the morgue, visiting the police stations, and then visiting the cemeteries. I mean, who's taking us serious? It come like we're visionless, and it's not true. But when we're influenced by other than ourselves, that's why we finish up with negative reactions and response. I took a shot at those who constantly say UNIA, and I took another shot at those who say Pan-African and don't do nothing because they're visionless. They're meant to be the think tank and let the young generation be the visionaries. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. And I don't know where they learned that crap, because that doesn't happen in the diaspora among the Europeans. It doesn't. It doesn't. No matter how much they love the power, they make sure that that organization of theirs, liberal, conservative, labor, whatever it is, keeps shining. But the individual, they know that they have a term and that's it. But they're going to be dutiful as possible that when the time comes to hand the reins over, because it's not about them. Got to understand how nationalism works. It's about the proudness of the organization that we're part of and the proudness of representing your country, which means the general population, and which means the status of that country. And we know that. We can see that we've been part of it. But do we exemplify that to ourselves? Because we're lacking. We don't have the facilities to sit down among ourselves and reason so that we have a common thread. That's what's also lacking. We feel that to have a school defeats the aimed objectives of the country. What the hell's wrong with you? It would be our school. We'd still be embracing the national curriculum, but we'd be educating ourselves. We'd be giving our thought on ethics, principles, and morality and culture to ourselves. Our values are important, but we've been embracing all sorts of toxic values and toxic fumes. And then when we assess and evaluate the repercussions, it's only one to blame, ourselves. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. But those of us who work in education and those of us who work with central government and even local government, we know about these things. We know about assessing and evaluation. We do. We're totally familiarized with it and we're totally committed. But we still haven't got some space to attract ourselves and giving birth, constant birth to social science and developing our perception of society. We're embracing others and it hasn't done us any good. It's ruined us. Hey, there's a person out there saying, listen here, I'm earning X thousands a year so you can back off. Really? I'm against what you're earning. And since you're proud to say back off, ask yourself, what have you done for your family? Your extended and immediate family. What have you done? Huh? What have you done? And perhaps, when last did you actually take your mother out or your father out? Anybody of the elders. Because you earn, you're this big shot. You got the money. No one is, I'm not against you, the fact that you did good at school, at college, maybe university at the same, and you broke through and you got a good job. But that skill that you have you filtered that understanding in the area to which you're living within? If it's a African Caribbean area? And if you have children, are you really there supporting them and the person to whom, there's so much, you know what I mean? And I can keep driving a wedge home and so forth, because I hate when people start saying, I earn. I'm not disputing that you earn and I earn too. It's what we do with what we earn and what we've done with what we've learned. And how much of it did we share among ourselves? This individualism and having this stuff is all good. But guess what? When you mount it all up and then we're sick and die, it's all gone. It's all gone. You didn't help anybody. We didn't help anybody. Selfish. Didn't help anybody. And then we want to know, or we're going to say about how other communities operate. We can see it because it represents a beauty. We just have to accept it. We can see it. We can call their names out and say they do this, they do that. And what we're really saying is, listen, I would like to be like that, but I don't know how to do it. I like to be like the Chinese, sort myself out in Chinatown. And where do they live? Where do they congregate? Where do they have their businesses in the West End? It's so expensive. It's expensive, man. There's no shop front down there, £60 a week. No, it's expensive. The rates are expensive. God damn it, expensive. And then where do they reside? West Hampstead, Golders Green, Palmer's Green, Hindon, Yes, that's where they reside, in some large houses. But you know them. You don't. You're just looking, and you feel good to say that this is what these people got. And they have schools for themselves and their children. They actually retain their mother tongue. Yes, because they want their children to grow up understanding the values of their culture. Not hearing it on TV and in passing. No, the value, the richness. And that goes for other nationalities, other ethnic groups. Except us, somehow we say, yeah, you can call us black, you can call us all this derogatory term, but you know what we like you to do is accept us as English. I mean, how ignorant is that it is? And that's what is wrong with us. We all want to be, we all love to assimilate, we all, you know, we really want that. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? See, that space called reasoning, but no, we went in a space called, am I being obsessed with it? Is it that I went there and something bad happened to me? Yeah, them should be in places. Just taught people how to hustle, how to be individual, and how to watch Jonathan and Patrick and then come up with a plan of taking from them. And today you call that scamming, right? That's what that damn space and those nonsensical people have taught us. That's what the majority of us have learned. That's what happened. And even the people who were very good cooks didn't turn around and see themselves running a restaurant, even though they've been going around and see restaurants here, there, in Piccadilly and Leicester Square and, you know, and so forth, and say, listen here, I can do that. You were too comfortable in the shebeen. And everybody was rah, and tear. They had the news, you know what I mean? The news. And even the news carriers didn't decide to get together and open up or contribute to a newspaper. So you got all these peoples there, but they're lacking integrity. They're lacking vision. No positive. No creative minds. But they're creative in their own right in that should be in space. And that same foolishness has come and polluted generations after generations. So it seems that we did the plantation owners bidding for them. They didn't have nothing to do. And they know how excellent we are giving rise to the opportunity. So if we look back at ourselves and realize that education in the place is free, and we've all took some of it, but what did the majority of us has been able to do with it? Because outside of our own lot, we had to go somewhere else to prove ourselves to a system that do not want to see us striving. So there's no part of us that's been independent. We're just being probed to be survivors. So unless we were willing or intended to die quickly We had a pledge. Yo, if I don't make this in 5 years, I dead, me I go dead. But we survived. We survived. Now someone would say, look at us now. You understand? When my basketball team, I go through some bad patches because it's transitioning from that other team to a younger team. At some point, that team comes of age and strength and everything else, and everybody fully understand and are working together and representing. You know, we say, come look at us now. You understand? Because we've clocked it. Anybody who want to take a game off of us, they got to be like us. We want to accept them to be better than us, they got to be like us. And I tell the players that that's a game that we need to be cherishing. Moments like that. Because it's a game of chess. And if we are away and lose that, it's only God can help them when they visit us. Now, we're not talking about no blowout. Nothing like that should be happening. Can happen. It's always like 6 point, 8 point, you know. But if it's a chess match, you know, it's going to be like 4 points. 4 points. You understand? And we ain't going to cry and say, oh, the referee. Even though sometimes the referee that seems, you know, but we're not going to do that. Because it's about ability. It's about ability. That's what it is. To me, that's what it comes down to. Skills, technique, ability. So you can lose a very beautiful game and don't feel pain and everything. You know what I mean? Ability. So, Vernon Jones, people, and giving rise to leadership and reassess and evaluate ourselves and ask ourselves, are we credible enough to say that we can trust ourselves? Trust ourselves. Because if we can say yes to that, just work. But if you can't immediately say yes to that, there's a problem. It's a problem. And the definitive problem is this. We don't trust ourselves, and we have no vision for ourselves, so we can't have any to project to others around and about us. And then we're spending too much time looking at what someone else has got and comparing and analyzing them. Then make up your mind now and tell other people why you shouldn't be working with such people or such person. That is sad. That's sad. The hills and the gullies that another person went through, that is their experience. And if I did not go through such thing, or I did go through such thing, that's my experience. It's what I do and what they do. If they confess or expand their experience to me, and I do likewise to them, that's all good. If they have a home, wife has got a car, and he's got a car, or his partner's got a car and he's got a car, and I'm still taking the bus and the train, and et cetera, I should not be minding their business like that. And if I was minding their business and assess myself according to what I think I'm recognizing from them, through them, then maybe I'm the one that's wrong. I'm not utilizing my assets. I'm not. I'm not good at financial management. So now I need to consult one of those families or persons and say, look, I need some help. Because I'm earning $50,000 a year and I don't do no more than 40 hours a week. And when you but think about the 40 hours, I can tell you I only do 32. Because the rest amounts to hospitality, meetings, blah. You understand? But I mean, looking at you and then looking at me, man, I'm not living. And that's being honest. And then you get we get some guidance. That's what reasoning brings us to. And that's what community living brings us to. That's what trust brings us to. And that's what these places called institutions of worship supposed to do. Yeah, that word supposed to. That's what it's supposed to do. So why someone is looking at the Muslim and saying this and that and the other, not realizing that it's well organized and their families there, and it represents a community, a holistic community, but you don't see that value and you're just there about, I don't know, and you just don't get it. You just don't get it. So that's why I'm trying to let people understand it and get it. And if you realize the social implications and the economical implications and the educational implications, if you recognize all these things, then you're saying, well, wow, that's what we've been missing. Now, that's what you've been missing because of a reflection of a Muslim to you. Now, if you grasp it and have consultation with us pertaining to structures, you can apply those things. You can. So I'm not saying to you, hey, you know what? The only way you can apply that is come over here. That's not what God says. He said it'd be preferable if you acknowledge him. Not him, but acknowledge God in his majesty. But if you want to say you're acknowledging God in a humanistic mindset, no wonder that there's a problem. Because you're going to agree and disagree, and you're going to argue, and whatever the case is, you're not going to be satisfied with your humanistic God. But if you see God outside of our frailties as human beings and the provider of everything that we, the human beings all across this earth, requires, then your wicked is good. Our wicked is good. And we have a lot to appreciate among ourselves. But anything else, we're going to be at loggerheads. For what? Why? You're not getting better oxygen than me unless you're somewhere where there's not such toxification, pollution. But you are still going to receive, and I will still receive, all the favors of God. You get it? You understand? Equally. You're not going to get some superior favor and I'm going to get some inferior favor. Where you get that from? And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's what my brothers across America is also trying to do. And we're going to keep going until our time is up. But we know our children is going to do the same thing. We know that. Because they're out there doing it in society, even though they're in academia, because their character attests to that. And when they speak to someone that looks like themselves, it attests to that. So we don't live a life of ignorance, hostility, and so forth. And our children leads us. They're matured now. So they lead us in our lives in relation to the service and the attention that we should be paying to God Almighty. Do you understand what I just said? Our children, especially the male, lead their mother and father and the rest of their family household in prayer. Our boys, how beautiful is that? And yet still I'm the president or prime minister of the house. Do you get it? Do you get it? We give rise to leadership with quality. Not boastful leadership, leadership with quality. So they understand what it's like or what it should be to be a leader. Because they can't be way in. They have to be ahead of us. And if anything, call us. Do you know what that's like for a young person, as you all were paying it? Having to have this responsibility and be so dutiful? And with all the tabulators and everything that's around, the Netflix and everything that's around, but yet still you have this time that you've allotted for God Almighty and your family in the same world that everybody else is living in, but you all take it for granted. And a child is getting up at 4, making themselves ready, making the space ready for their parents and their cousins, if they're all in the same house with us, or their sisters, to read the word of God to us and lead us in prayer. That's what you call leadership. I legislated to you leadership. And we are already, and they are already preparing themselves for what we call Ramadan. We're getting ready. The whole of the Muslim world, the followers of the Prophet, now that's what you call leadership. So, are they being molded? Yes. Are they being groomed? No. Are they being dictated to? No. Is it by force? No. But it's required as a father and a mother to their children. Now, you all can see birds out there. You see them. You do see them. You see how they take care. See how they take care of their young. You see what they do. Stop divorcing yourself from and come with all these ignominious arguments. Because you're looking for something to slide tackle somewhere. Then the referee give you a red card and you got sent off and everything. And you said, nah, he's biased. What are you talking about? This is not football. It's not basketball. It's life. It's life. Take some time out and become that human being that accept responsibility, calling themselves now by society, within society, a parent, a guardian, a husband, a wife, a child, a young man, a young woman. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Are we in the Muslim communities, wherever we are we consumers? We trade among ourselves. Don't you get it? Don't you get it? Look at our institutions. And this is not to show off. Look at the institutions. Look at the inspirations. Look at how our children are inspired. It hurts the societies that we live in and around. It hurts the politicians because they see excellence. They would like that excellence to be integrated. How far can we go? So the labels that come out, something about the hijab, want to strip our girls. Something about our madrasas, brainwashing. When we have our graduation, or when we have our open days, and we have a lot of, and these politicians, local councillors, and everybody is invited, and they see and recognize our children that have memorized the whole Quran, and they hear them. They have the pleasure to sit within our spaces and receive our hospitality and see how we award our children. Even after they graduate at school, college, or university, we have our own community graduation. You think we're just going to pass our children by like that? We don't do that. Universities up and down the country are invited. Many of our children receive scholarship just based on the invitation that's been awarded to these people, to the education secretary and these people, and the fact that when they hear the honors and the distinctions and everything that our children have received. Now, only someone who actually hates you and they don't have no reason to be hating would turn around and say, to hell with these people. And we have people coming from institutions coming from far and wide, America and Canada and the rest, all across Europe. Because we're consistent in promoting our children and the excellence of our children and our communities. I mean, we have some serious architects. And we also give rise to our business people. I think it's like next week, there's a big award ceremony for businesses. That's what we do. That's what we do. Award ourselves. Not wait for someone else to do that. No, it's part of the Islamic lifestyle. It's being projected by our Prophet. After bringing us out of Jahiliyyah, yes. So, those of you, some of you out there saying he's about showing off. No. I'm just expanding something to let some people think about that instead of me going down the track where people want to say, Christianity this and Muslims this. No. We can do that on a separate time, but what is that going to do? I mean, you know, if we have differences or there's some things that are similar and somebody wants to know, yeah, that's okay. You know, fact finding, but building, that ain't building nothing. That's ego tripping. Ain't building nothing. You should be asking us some serious question. How do we find it so easy to do all these things? How the hell do you all get up at this time and you do this every day? And, you know, every year you're about this Ramadan thing. And how is it, I mean, how do you find it, man? And so forth. And your wives and everything. And the children. How did this happen? Right? You know, are you a dictator? I mean, do you make, is it absolute that your children have to do that? You know, all these questions can be asked. But if you just want to put it down to that, you want to try and find some frailties, we ain't got time for that, man. Understand? They're distractive elements. Distractive elements. You know? We go into certain things because politically, you know, they want to say this about Afghanistan, this, that, and the other, and the French is doing this, you know, and this, and so forth. So we have to take a real strong stance to say, yo, back off. You understand? So they do all these things, thinking that they can sit down and make our children, especially our girls, feel that they're inferior in relation to society. But because they're read and they do read the Quran themselves, they got ears like everybody else, and that's as far as it goes. But not saying that they won't get a few, but nothing lost. Those few come right back. Yeah, they come right back. You know, some come back tainted, and some come back untainted. But it's the world that we're in. It's not the world, the environments that we're in. That's why some of us decide to up and move. You understand? Because sometimes the community that you have, the areas that we're strongest, right? You know, we're outside on the periphery, so you need to get inside, so we'll be closer. So we gelling, because we're closer. You know that big song, Closer Together? Big song, that. So when you all look around these Muslim communities, realize what it is that you're seeing and realize how much work goes into that. You understand? And how much support, right? And the fact that we don't deal with usury, how much support? The support that goes into that, the network that goes into that, the trust that goes into that. Come on. You know, ain't thinking. You're not thinking. You're not thinking. And even if you're not thinking, why don't you question? Question us. See, you understand that Abdullah, Muhammad, Saeed, Luqman, all these people have come together and helped another person, another family to own their dwelling. Whether it's a house or a flat, to earn their dwelling. Just like that. We take care of our business, take care of ourselves. That's why it's called community. You understand? So by the time all these things are done, can't you see the mosques, the areas, the schools, the colleges, these things are being built by ourselves. Yeah. We have some serious affluent communities. But we have communities. And I said affluent in the sense that, you know, the kind of wealth that is in those areas, when you see it, you actually know. You understand? But we also have to recognize or realize that they've been at it for like 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You understand? So it's like the cradle started, but now, you know, they're rocking BMW cradles, you know, and Mercedes and Rolls Royce cradles. They're rocking. You understand? Serious thing. And the employment within that local community, right? The vast number of employment in that local community is by themselves. Yeah. Even when it comes to janitors and cleaners and, you know, and things like that, right? We're taking care of the full business. And talking about housing co-ops, these type of institutions, right? But you have to also be in local politics. You have to be. You have to be in banking because we're about usury. So you can't be just there saying this is what we're supposed to be doing and right. No, you're just talking. You understand? We have to raise ourselves, raise our levels, and be involved. We're up at the stock exchange. Yes, we're there. So I wanted to hear this one about Muslim leadership. That's why you would need to get the Skype and call in. This would have been a very serious conversation. Powerful conversation.
Do you think African Americans are not given the same respect by others because they haven't produced enough scholars? And if so, what will it take to gain respect?
Well, that question to me, as I think about it now, you know, I don't know. There's an argument that we need to produce scholarship in Black America, Islamic scholarship, authentic Muslim scholarship in Black America. And I agree with them. I agree with them. At the same time, most of the ones, when I hear that and when I see it, I see Arabs. I don't see Black people. So if you're telling me that that's what we need, then I disagree. Because there were Sunni Muslims around during the same days as the Nation of Islam. We have to give them that credit. And a lot of the ones who didn't come through the Nation of Islam today, they want to kind of highlight that history. And we have to acknowledge that history. We have to always try to be fair, at least try. But we have to also be fair and let's admit that they didn't make really any impact upon Black America. Because they just didn't. And I think that no matter how you slice it, we had sheikhs, we had different groups, we had people study and come back, but that knowledge didn't really serve our needs. And I think that today, a lot of, not all of, a lot of the Black Sunni currents are fading back into non-importance like those groups before the Nation of, or that were contemporaneous with the Nation of Islam. They don't have the, you have to have, you know, this shirt is a nice shirt. You got nice stitching in it, you know, good cotton, but it's like 30 degrees outside. So if I go outside in this shirt, no matter how well it's put together, it's not designed for that environment. I at least have to put on a flannel or something else to go along with this shirt to make this shirt to buffer up its efficacy in this environment. I think the same line of reasoning has to be considered when we talk about scholarship. I remember, you know, I had studied under Imam Muhammad first for several years, and he would just Quran commentary. He'd be talking about issues in Islam. So when I went to, for example, I went to Medina Institute, and what Sheikh Ninawi did, he compressed like a 4-year program in 1 year. That's why he made this intensive. I don't know if he's the first one, but he formed it after one of the descendants of Ali, who used to buy slaves, teach them for a year, and then liberate them. So he patterned his program. So we studied like the Tahawi, we studied Def Shuba, we studied Fiqh al-Akbar, and we got all the way up to like the Sanusi. And then we did the book by Imam Pasha, between the differences between the Maturidis and the Ash'aris, etc. Did a lot. We did about 5 or 6 texts just in Aqidah. We did logic, and it was like every day. And we're having, the Sheikh is doing his commentary on these books, so on and so forth. We did, obviously, Nukhbatul Fiqh, those introductory hadith books. And then he was giving us a lot of his personal, like his commentary on the 73 sects. But it was really, the biography. We were looking at the biographies. We were looking at, we did Kitab al-Ilal of Imam at-Tirmidhi. We did Muslims, Muqaddimah. We did a lot of books because our year was unique. A lot of teachers couldn't make it. So Sheikh Ninawi did a lot in Suhail Lahar, and then another couple of people. We did his Usul al-Bid'ah. We did, Usul al-Fiqh. We did all kind of stuff, right? And we did all of the schools. Ash'ari, we didn't do the Athari school. We did do some books by Ibn Taymiyyah, but it was like on his Quran tafsir methodology. But we did Ash'ari, Maturidi, Aqidah. We did Shafi'i and Hanafi fiqh, Shafi'i and Hanafi usul, starting with Usulu Shashi, and then the other one, the Waraqat. We start there, but then they were expounding upon these texts. And I'm sitting there this whole time. As a Muslim, I'm loving it. I'm saying, man, this is nice. And I'm sitting there saying, but I can't. At the same time, we had our We Buy Black stands in the mall, South DeKalb Mall, which is a hood mall. Anybody in Atlanta know that's a South DeKalb is hood. And the other one on, I can't think of it. It's on the other side. Greenbrier. These are hood malls. The first day, my friend set up the stand, the We Buy Black selling product, black-owned products in the Greenbrier Mall. That same day, someone got shot. The guy was trying to rob this other guy. The guy that was getting robbed shot him because you can openly carry in Georgia. I'm in South DeKalb, so I would go to classes, go to my stand in the evening, and I'm watching people getting robbed. It's a hood mall, and I could. Like it was a good time because I'm like, what I'm learning has nothing to do. No, I shouldn't say it has nothing to do, but that's not how I'm going to reach these people. These people are on a whole nother page. The messaging and the means by which we attract them to Islam and hold them to Islam, I'm not getting it, even though the Islamic studies is beautiful in and of itself. It has very little application to these people are robbing, killing, pimping. They're doing everything, selling drugs. It was this girl used to come, I got that gas. They were doing everything you can think of in the mall. Having their way with each other's bodies in the mall. This is what they do. So it really brought home to me simply this notion that scholarship as study and transmission of knowledge, in-depth study and transmission of knowledge obviously isn't enough. That wasn't the first time I came to that conclusion because I grew up, my parents were in the Nation of Islam. They made the transition under Imam Muhammad, and I'm in a community of people. I'm seeing what really works. And what really works is first recognizing the problem. A good doctor has to figure out by way of the symptoms what the ailment is before he administers his medicine or he administers whatever treatment. Most of our people are suffering from the fact that they've never been loved. They've never been loved by their mother, let alone by their father. They've never met their father. They've lived with a sense of fear. They've never lived with a sense of stability. They've had unstable lives. They've been never told, like some people in our community have never been told, I love you. They've been told you're ugly. They've never been invested in. They have never seen a model of a real human. And the only human that perhaps many of them have ever seen was their grandparent, who was more Southern and Christian in their behavior than anything else. But after that generation of Southern Christians, we got all of these other types. So I could see how the reality of Muhammad, praise and peace be upon him, this man who never told a lie, who never stole, who was gentle, who was caring, who was loving, that's really what they need. Because they're in a state of jahiliyyah. And just like the Jahili Arabs, they were able to see the prophet not upon the basis of argument. They weren't theologians. That wasn't even their way. The theological arguments are primarily lobbied at the Jews and Christians in the Quran. But the testimony that they could stand upon was the character, the nature, the value of the human person, Muhammad, that they knew. And I feel that today that is the best way to really reach our people. It's not that we don't teach them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying what to draw them in and to hold them. Because like a baby starts in this world, and the baby begins in this world by being fed by his mother, held by his mother, protected by his mother, feeling a sense of security. That's what most of our people are still in that state. When they come into the community, they need that more than anything else. And just like as the child matures, now you can begin to impart to them lessons and instruction. I would say the same thing is true for the people in our communities. So we need scholars, yes, but we need scholars who are also sensitive to the needs of their people. We need scholars who are independent thinking, and they are free in their own mind, because no one's holding them back from developing our own methodology to address our traumas, to address our areas of healing, so on and so forth. I say what I said in the previous question that you asked. That will gain us respect on its own. So we don't need anyone else to validate us and say, who's going to give us a plaque or a degree and say, oh yeah, you're a Muslim now. You see what I'm saying? Who qualifies to do that? Allah brought us into this. You didn't do anything. So that's the spirit that we should have. That's the direction that we could take, that we should take, pardon me. And we should be moving forth as a community with full faith that our Lord, Allah, highly glorified as He is with us for this great job. But we have to think on our own. And there's a lot to be said about that. I'm not going to go in for the sake of time. I'll keep it short. But there's a lot to be said about that in terms of God being with us and Allah being our guide on this path.
Yes. And scholars. We have a lot of scholars. Over the years, we have grown. We have learned and we have grown. And our scholars are accepted, appreciated, and we love them, but they're loved by the Muslim world. And in the diaspora, we have scholars, but they're not readily available because we're not resourceful. We're not resourceful. We find it easier to motivate a 3-year-old to dance, to DJ, or to rap. And to get a congregation, we need to show that child off. And the same thought process needs to be endeared into our scholars, our creative thinkers. That's it. We're just lacking that togetherness and the social science of being familiarized with ourselves. We know ourselves, but we're not familiarized with ourselves. We should understand that we have a great commonality. And our souls are yearning and calling for it. And we're not understanding, to me, we're not understanding the methodology of influence. Of influence. We're influenced by other people, just like we're consumers. But if we understood the methodology and the science, the social science of influence, wow. But we do. we do it in sound. We do it in music. We do it in music. See? So it's just about the chain of thought and the space and the reasoning and that togetherness that would make us truly appreciate ourselves and do for self and develop African self-love in it from the diaspora perspective, because that's where we are. That's where we are. And to go back, travel back, and look at the attempts that was made, and not even attempts. Look at what was done, and embrace those things. Embrace them, so we would know where we're heading. We won't just let things happen for the sake of happening, because something will happen. Good, bad, or indifferent, positive, negative, or adventurous or not, it will happen. But the best of us as human beings are the ones who orchestrates that. Yeah. That's why I said, look at the birds. I mean, a bird make preparation. Preparation. When you see a bird taking twigs and everything and flying up a tree, that bird has surveyed that locality. Because what? If there's squirrels and all these kind of thing around, they're going to interfere with the development. That's what's going to happen. So the bird surveys the locality. Then, based on what they found, they decide, okay, and now we're going to find a place to develop a resident. And they say, okay, and then they have to go and find the material. And they do. And some of these birds, the material does be some dirt also. But they go and find this material and return to this area that they feel is most conducive for them to make this nest, this home, this place where they're going to consecrate themselves. Because after that's done, their relationship gets blossomed. That bird lays eggs. I mean, come on, man. I mean, some of us is going to go, what's with the kindergarten nonsense? It's not nonsense. The birds are looking for somewhere to develop a home so that they can procreate, make sure the space, the vicinity is safe, and then to go and purchase the resources to develop this home. And if you look at the birds, they develop different homes. Some of them are round with a little entry. I mean, listen, some of the entries at the bottom, or what we would call the bottom from looking, and some entries at the top, and some entry is in the center somewhere. And some of the nests are huge. Well, they look huge. And some are just like footballs, mini basketball. And then another looks open and flattish. I mean, come on, man. All I'm saying is, why do we want to deny the excellent favors in nature to be disgruntled? And then when we get to a certain age, we start saying, if only. And it shouldn't be said, but it has to be said because our soul is just said, you know what, your time is up, man. And we start saying, if only I did knew. And we did know. And if only we did pay attention. And that is it. We didn't pay attention. Yeah? And some of us don't like sharing. You know, sharing. A kind word, a smile. And that's why our grandparents teach us common courtesy. Because with common courtesy, you get up in the morning, you've gone outside, go do what you got to do, and you see people. They could be a neighbor, they could be, and you just greet them. But there's some people that just wait for other people to do all that. You know what I mean? And then come back and tell them friend, you know what? Me see blah, 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 you know. And them not say one word to me. So what? What you wait for? You understand? Because some people, them get up all right, but them have a zillion and one things on their mind, and even though them see you not, them a plan something. So them vividly see you. So they're not like, and you have to understand that because it happens to all of us. So you break the silence, don't wait for them. And then they'll go tell somebody, you know, you see X, Z, and Y, and Cha. And I say one word to me. Where you carry bad news for? And where I say black African love. That's what we're saying. Brother Naim Akbar, you know what I mean? Go across the diasporan world and project social science, moral ethics and principles to us. To us. Self-love. And that's for a reason. So, I don't want to keep rambling, because that's what I'm doing at the moment. I could give them one nice tune and then we're gone, because I have things to do and I know some of my wife vex now. You understand? Because we have to take time out and say a prayer. You understand? That's our life. You see? So, I'm going to give you a Rasta philosophy. So, share, try hook up or use the chat, write something that I can actually decipher. I'm just saying, you know, the young people's thing, I'm not there. You know what I mean? And then them what you call them thing there? Them little things, I'm not there. You understand? Yeah. So thanks for the support. But reasoning is the seasoning. So this is a request to all out there. Yeah. Give thanks. So we have to guidance. You know what? depending on how the wife how the wife decide to chastise me and not to chastise me, I can come back about 7:30 and do culture expression. But yeah, so no promises. Guidance. Give thanks to everyone.
Blessed are your eyes that have seen, and your ears that have heard these wonderful words. Yeah, my fight against Rastaman philosophy, but them heart well set and fixed. Yes, their mind all wisdom and pride and vanity. Them self born in sin and shaping iniquity by the works of the Almighty.
Yeah, you know something. We have a lot of, over my lifetime and my life journey, a lot of very skillful, intelligent individuals, adults, elders. And we have people in and around the community that are talented, and not one of their autobiography has been documented. And many of them have not been commemorated because we haven't created the space for ourselves to reflect on our journey, our journeys. And that's why I project Rasta. Because the Rastas, them look across and see, say, that this recording thing can project what they want to say. It can project what they want to say. Now, it is to make the inquiries about it. And the people who own the studio tell you a price. Now we have to sit back, lean up, not sit back, lean up against the wall, be in certain areas and check from ones and ones what is going on. Now you find that this person, that person is a musician. But before you call a musician, them people, him can play an instrument. So then somebody tell you, said, you see the man that just gather around such and such place. And you just go there. And before you even get there, you start hear something. So now you're hearing something now. You make up your mind and say, yo, that we need, you know. So once you're inside that space there now, time and time, you get to know somebody, you know. You see them and them see you. And you ask questions. And then one day you say to people, them, yo, I have something I want to say now. And them say it now. And you just say what you want to say. And them yell it up. And sometimes they yell it up, but they don't put it down. Huh? And then you hear a sound that make you feel good in relation to that which you have written. So now you chance it now and ask the people and say, watch out, you see that sound that you play? Can you play it again and make me try my thing upon it? That's one of the evolution. and the reasoning and the togetherness of Rastafari and the players of instruments. Because so is to call it, the players of instruments. You understand? And the musician. You understand? And then the item finds around about them, there's people who have that gift. Beside the playing of the drum. See? So it just grew, and Rasta become messengers for the community. And activists in them own right in the community. And projecting social science. All these titles that Rasta never used. It was just there. It just happened. And after we said that, labels came about. And it was Rasta with a culture and Rasta with a vision within the society, nationally and locally. You understand? Nationally means the whole island, and locally means the community, and then it went international. Yeah, you see? So find me another group, a body of people that was socially expressing themselves and had a lot of things to say about the hardships and the oppression and everything, and then the cry for love and unity. Rasta did that, right? I know somebody's going to say, but the love, no. That love thing have nothing to do with social science and the development of communities and society. You understand? That's to do with how a person feel about a female. You understand? And we have no problem with that. Because one day I'm going to play some Rasta love. Rasta love sound, but Rasta love, yeah, man, serious thing. So we'll go away again, guidance with God. I had to say that. You understand? And them kind of reasoning we can have, them kind of reasoning that it's like, it start for like 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes gone to hours, that reasoning there. And no part of it can be washed up. No part of it can violate anybody. You understand? Because there are things that we learn from, there are things that we build, and there are things that we can enrich our society, our community with. You understand? Because it's ourselves. You understand? And it's harmony. Not about how much you know and how much I don't know, and you beat me over the head with a word. And no. This debating, argumentative something for delinquents, not juveniles, for delinquents. We don't work with that. At all. But we can do it. But it just sits in a place of vulgarity and it's too toxic. So when we do have intellectual discourse, it's all about empowering and enriching the community. Not about super excelling ourselves so people go away and say, you see him, a genius, and no. See her? No. You understand? And we had a lot of poets, some serious poets that didn't need nothing else but them just a quiet spot. And then that same ones, them people that just play some acoustics around and about them. Some serious poets. And that enriched them because we were in attention. So more and more poetry be written by that person, and other persons would feel confident enough to come out, because they've been writing forever, but they don't have nobody to hear it, and them feel say them not worthy. Huh? You understand? And Rasta break all of those barriers. You know, people them who are neglected and people who feel that they were neglected without an effort. You see? So, guidance.
Blessed are your eyes that have seen and your ears that have heard these wonderful words. Yeah, them a fight against Rastaman philosophy, but them heart well set and fixed. Yes, their mind all rest and their pride and vanity. Them set me born in sin and shaping iniquity by the works of the Almighty. So don't let them fill up your vocabulary with a whole lot of things and them not necessary. Hey, give us the teaching of His Majesty. One and all got to face this reality. So we all got to face this reality. And when you come in, say we coming with your posse. Take a taste of this living water and you will never thirsty. Them say that the half had never been told. Say if you come away.
Yo, Aisha called me. Say, here what now? I have to go. The family called me, so. Oh, gosh, well, Aisha, mommy, what mommy I say? Mommy say, come before you get too involved. You understand? If anything, come back later. So here one. So we have to give thanks for the presents. Give thanks to, you know what I mean, and pass it on, subscribe, you know what I mean, share, and motivate me. And you know what I mean, we have enough topics, right? When I say we, as in us, as the people, them, you know what I mean? And once we deal with development, not toxic stuff, and you want some strategies on how to get things off the ground, we did it. You understand? And you can ask questions about Islam. But if you want to ask questions about Islam and the Moors and this and that, the other, no, I'm not entertain that. You understand? The man there chat, more, and more. Man, I want to convince people that people in ancient days were speaking black and this and that, and they weren't. You understand? We're so bogged down with racial segregation and all of these things. And then nobody can produce the black land and nobody can produce the infinity of this thing. So sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what is it that they're trying to do? You understand? And no one is saying, when you say all these things, are you bringing a solution to anybody? You understand? So it's always about bragging, and a child can turn around and put water upon that alleged fire just like that. Because the child is going to say, are we meant to benefit from what you're saying? If so, how? Clear as daylight. If so, how? You know what I mean? And because it's ignorance. I've not heard from the alleged YouTube scholars, YouTube people, them, panels, them, a definitive reasoning or historical exposition pertaining to the Africans in Spain. And we're talking about hundreds of years. hundreds of years. When I hear nobody talk about Africans in Europe, then come to Europe pillaging. Nah. When I hear about Africans and science, mathematics, geometry, astrology, not astrology, what the thing name? Begin with the A, you know. Agriculture and so on. All of these fine arts is being left out because they're not interested. You see? So we make ourselves look quite ignorant, and then people want to divorce themselves, mentally divorce themselves from Africa. You understand? They're more American than African. Okay, we can see that, understand that, because you're born in America, but your origin is African. Then you will have to do something about that. Learn about Africa, research Africa. And you're of age now where you can just get your passport and travel to Africa. Yes. You know, 2 generations before you, those people around 30 and 40 were seeing Africa through the eyes of Tarzan, Cheetah, Jane, and what a boy named? the Jai. Huh? You understand? And then a lot of other animals that this Tarzan was able to communicate with, and we who come from there, we not communicate with nothing. Plus, Tarzan was able to use the vines within trees and get from one part of the continent to the next part of the continent right there and then. And when there's ravines, the different animals, including the what them call them thing there, them serious lizard type of thing, crocodile. They will make a line, so him just run across them back, touch them and get across the other side. Even elephants wait for him, and that's what they put on television. So if that's the Tarzan that you've been able, that's the Africa that you've been able to relate to. Remember, that's a German rhyme, and you know what I mean. It was there to exploit a situation and a fear, and then Africa that them show you was a despicable place, and you know. And it just rigged with poverty and and tear. You understand? But the Africans that was in Europe, the Africans that was in Spain, and maybe some of you are so prejudiced because you get to understand that there were so many Muslims, and I don't know why you keep going on with Moors, yeah, because they were Muslims, right? And Moor just mean, for some people, depending who's writing, Moroccans, and another set of people, Africans, blacks. But not black, but Africans, you understand? Because Ethiopia was also meant to be Africans. There is Africa, but it's meant to be a distinctive thing according to the Caucasian. Sudanese was meant to be, in totality, Africa, and so forth, right? And so they write it, depending on who were the author. So you would understand and everything. So Aisha, yeah, tell mom I'm coming. You know, why I'm saying I'm coming, I'm gonna play this song. May I leave the Rasta thing and go over here? Come here. I know myself, you know.
All the things they say and the things they do can't stop me from loving you.
Yes, that's us. So I'm saying, give thanks, guidance. The last 3 persons that's coming, it is duties I have to perform and everything. That's why my daughter come and said, Mommy call you. You understand? So we have to say guidance. So don't take it personal to think say that I know who's there. And I don't know who's there, but I'm just saying that's the reason. I've started African History month early. I started with Vernon Johns. I will come back with Vernon and a few other things because he represented us and he wanted so much for us in terms of our freedom and in relation to us building and orchestrating and working together so we don't finish up to be consumers, to which we have done. And so forth. And, you know, there's a lot of us, including my beloved brethren, Michael Jordan, to look at themselves and ask themselves really and truly some questions. So I say again, guidance, we're gone. Give thanks.